EUC landscape feels a little homogeneous right now. Even before torque was a thing in the EUC ecosystem, everything was centered around bigger batteries and bigger motors, which was fine for feeding our thirsty souls for more speed and power. But what we didn't bank on was the uphill battle EUC manufacturers had in providing us with wheels that were flawless with efficiency to match. Fortunately, for now, Veteran is more than happy to provide us with
this, the redesigned Sherman, dubbed the Sherman Max. Designed for adventure and recreational riding, this latest iteration of the Sherman pushes its power to the max. If you know anything about the EUC's company, Leaperchem, you'll know the redesigned Sherman is true to the company's ethos. If it wasn't ridiculously fast, overpowered, or the combination of the two, it just wouldn't be a Leaperchem EUC.
So what's my Sherman Max story?
We interrupt this program to bring you this message. Now back to our program.
Shout out to FreeMotion Shop for providing me with the Sherman Max. If you guys find yourself wanting to explore your freedom of motion on a Sherman Max or any personal electronic vehicle, make your journey count with FreeMotion Shop. You'll be glad you did, or at least your wallet will. Now let's get into this video. As the name implies, the Max has been fine-tuned and tinkered with by Leaperchem to make this their maximum performing wheel under the Sherman moniker. If for nothing else, the resonating sounds of angry bees as the tire reverberates off the asphalt doesn't do it for you? The torque surely will. In their attempt at offering the best possible finely tuned EUC imaginable straight out of Coventry, Veteran outfitted the Max's battery capacity to 3,600 watts and its motor capacity to 2,800 watts, giving it a degree of separation from its former self a noticeably torquier feel. Sure, although the Max is powerful, it's crazy to say this is not nearly as powerful as some of the competition, which surprisingly leaves me conflicted because of my love-hate relationship toward it. With the Max, you can't help but to give it that full send lean to gauge what a 3,600 watt battery / 2,800 watt motor combination can do for you from this utilitarian performing wheel. Not only is it super responsive, being that it is 6 pounds heavier than its former self, more manageable to handle, or maybe muscle memory kicked in to say heavier wheels were thrust around in the past, but the balance is the chef's kiss. It's like no amount of force lean it receives, the Max, like its former self, just fights you to stay balanced, which can be seen as a good thing or bad thing depending on what spectrum you're on the learning curve. But the takeaway from this is, like everything else, in order to be good at something, you must practice. Sure, the speed is nowhere near that of version 1 nor version 2 for that matter, but anytime torque finds its way in the schematic makeup, it comes at the expense of speed. And seeing how this wheel is torque biased, we all know that torque and speed are inversely proportional of one another in these motors. So there you have it. Is the subjective too much? Sorry. Let's go with the objectives then. Objectively speaking, the Max can reach top speeds of 45 miles per hour, which when you think about it isn't too shabby. While cruising around at 89% battery life, I was able to reach 44.9 miles per hour according to EUC World app. And at that speed, I was getting 3 resounding beeps, which indicates for a rider my weight, 45 plus miles per hour is doable, but you will be riding the beeps. But you didn't need me to tell you that. Additionally, the Max is rated to go 144 miles and beyond on a single charge if speeds are capped at or below 20 miles per hour and your rider weight is 170 pounds or less. I was able to squeeze 112 miles at speeds averaging 32 miles per hour. Further, the Max has been outfitted with thicker motor phase wires for increased power transfer and comes with a redesigned pedal bracket. And oh yeah, let's not forget a more sturdier rim for those low PSI riders and curb hoppers. Also, noteworthy of mention, Anytime we're dealing with specs on these EUCs, one must take into account variables that get thrown in the equation which will skew the manufacturer's results. Case in point, rider weight, environment, terrain, etc. But it's crazy to think we live in a high-performance world with these insane EUCs. I mean, you can buy any given wheel and it will manage to perform to some slight degree better than the Max, depending on who you ask. But in the grand scheme of things, does it matter in the real world when collectively you're getting a more robust wheel that tends to dominate the EUC market? And to be fair, it's certainly capable of keeping up with the pack and performing those day-to-day EUC adventures. As much as the torque dominates experience of riding the Max, those nut jobs at Leaperkin overlooked an ever-persisting problem, and that is pedal dipping. And if you're anything like me and try to adjust your pegs to compensate, it only makes it worse. And as cliche as it sounds, this too shall pass. It's just a matter of time before a new firmware corrects this issue. Noteworthy of mention are complaints reported by current owners that the rubber buttons on the display panel does become dislodged, making for an interesting time getting them back into place. Also, the removal of the motherboard cover from the motherboard, if not removed with surgical precision, can be easily damaged. So the question here is, should the foibles of the Max be overlooked with a price tag of nearly $3,800? Let's be real, you guys are EUC enthusiasts, and I'm an EUC enthusiast, and unless there is a wheel that knocks it out of the ballpark for us, we are left with a checklist of negotiables and non-negotiables. And if the negotiables outweigh the non, that's the wheel for us. So sure, the Max has its fair share of minor hiccups that will no doubt be fixed, but the wheel's performance is right in sync of how an EUC outfitted with its designs and specs should perform. Leaperkin banks on those intangible feeling gliders get when riding their wheels because that's what they get right. They understand the experience a glider wants and make good on those deliverables. Whether you like it, love it, hate it, or somewhere in between, the Max in all its glory and lack thereof has its place in these EUC streets. If you're asking yourself if the Max is the right fit for you, go down your checklist and see whether the negotiables outweigh the non-negotiables. Then, maybe then, you'll find your answer. Alright guys, this is V, and you have been watching my Sherman Max story. It has been a pleasure, and I'll see you guys the next time I'm out and about doing fun things on EUCs. It would be befitting for me to say bye for now, but whoever said I was a befitting type gal? Certainly not I. So until next time guys, deuces.